Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama Bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
Date: December 24th, 1979. The Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan, and Afghan fighters had launched a bloody resistance using guerrilla tactics. Many Muslims from around the world were flocking here to protect Afghanistan against the Soviets. However, agents who saw opportunity in the chaos of the Afghan geography, caring nothing for cultural values or human rights, were locked solely onto their own objectives. To give an example, the CIA, through Operation Cyclone, was both arming and financing the Mujahideen here against the Soviets. But among those fighting against the Soviets in Afghanistan, there was a 24-year-old Saudi Arabian standing 1.90 meters tall, the heir to the Saudi Bin Laden group, the son of a billionaire businessman, and the one possessing the financial and logistical support capabilities for the groups fighting the Soviets. It was Osama Bin Laden. Osama Bin Laden came into the world on March 10, 1957, as the 17th child of a family where his father had made over 20 marriages and had more than 50 children. His father's wealth was so great that, even though the inheritance was divided among more than 50 siblings, Osama bin Laden was left with a colossal share of $25 to $30 million in the money of that era. Bin Laden had been instrumental in the arrival of thousands of people to the Afghan side against the Soviets. He was even among the founders of Maktab al-Khidamat, Services Bureau, which was established to collect money, weapons, and volunteers from the Arab world. Not stopping there, Bin Laden established his own military training camp in Afghanistan named Al-Masada, meaning the Lion's Den. This camp made such a noise that the Soviets launched a major attack here. In this attack, Bin Laden was also wounded in his leg. Although they resisted strongly against this harsh attack, military defeat was inevitable. However, they viewed this battle as a psychological victory. Because the Afghan side had managed to hold its position for such a long time against a regular army for the first time. With these developments, Bin Laden's popularity was increasing day by day. That same year, he grew closer to the Salafist organization named Egyptian Islamic Jihad, led by Ayman al-Zawahiri. As years passed in this manner, the end of the Soviet-Afghan War had arrived. The success of the jihadist groups here had greatly whetted the appetite of Bin Laden and his team. Therefore, it was decided to continue the jihad even after the withdrawal of Soviet soldiers. In the frequently held meetings, the name al-Qaeda, which would shake the whole world, was heard for the first time, and in a meeting held on August 20th, the organization was officially founded. The minutes contained the following statements. Al-Qaeda is essentially an organized Islamic group. Its purpose is to exalt God's name and to make God's religion victorious. According to the minutes, Mujahideen under the protection of Al-Qaeda would be trained, and after trial camps, the best warriors among them would be recruited into the organization. A short while later, the Soviet Union left Afghanistan. Bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia and took charge of the construction operations in the family business. However, the waters simply would not calm down. In 1990, Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, invaded Kuwait. America conveyed that it would stand against Saddam and stated its intention to deploy troops to Saudi Arabia. However, Osama bin Laden met with King Fahd of Saudi Arabia and the Minister of Defense, asserting, "We do not need America's help. American soldiers must not be present on Muslim soil." But King Fahd and the Minister of Defense gave a negative response to bin Laden, permitting American soldiers to deploy to Arabia. This situation angered bin Laden greatly. He claimed that the real war was being waged not against Iraq, but against Islam. His relationship with the government has deteriorated increasingly. As tensions between bin Laden and the government escalated, the Saudi administration raided his farm and placed him under house arrest. Leveraging his family's influence and connections, bin Laden petitioned to travel to Pakistan. Once this request was granted, bin Laden first went to Afghanistan, where he sent a letter to his family informing them that he would never return to Saudi Arabia. Subsequently, he moved to Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, where the National Islamic Front had seized power in a coup. This was exactly the kind of environment bin Laden had been looking for. While operating in the construction and agricultural sectors in Sudan, bin Laden continued to multiply his supporters. Al-Qaeda, growing day by day, was undergoing military training on one hand, and gathering intelligence on Africa on the other. Al-Qaeda's first attack took place on December 29, 1992, targeting 2 hotels housing American soldiers en route to Somalia. However, by the time the attacks were carried out, the American soldiers had already checked out of the hotels. Just 3 months later, Al-Qaeda attempted an even larger attack. On February 26, 1993, a bombing was carried out by Al-Qaeda members at the World Trade Center in New York, known as the Twin Towers. Leading this team was the Pakistani national, Ramzi Youssef. 6 people lost their lives in the attack, and more than 1,000 were injured. In an interview given in later years, bin Laden claimed he had no connection to the attack and did not know the perpetrators. Al-Qaeda was now infiltrating and establishing a presence in many countries. They even provided weapons and training support to fighters in the Somali civil war. Upon learning this, the Saudi Arabian government revoked Osama bin Laden's citizenship in April 1994 and seized all his assets in the country. In response, bin Laden wrote a letter to King Fahd, conveying that American soldiers must leave Saudi Arabia, and warning that if they did not, attacks would be carried out within the country. And so it happened. On November 13, 1995, a car bomb attack was carried out targeting the Saudi Arabian National Guard Training Center in Riyadh, which was under American control. As with the previous attack, bin Laden denied ordering the strike himself, yet expressed that he was pleased by it. The perpetrators, meanwhile, stated that they had been influenced by bin Laden. Following these developments, bin Laden had become a highly conspicuous target. Therefore, America increased its pressure on Sudan day by day. Consequently, in May 1996, bin Laden was expelled from Sudan. Thus, bin Laden returned to the city of Jalalabad in Afghanistan and published a declaration in the newspaper Al-Quds al-Arabi, in which he declared jihad against the United States. Among the objectives stated in the declaration were expelling American forces from the Arabian Peninsula, overthrowing the Saudi administration, and supporting all Islamist organizations around the world. Around that time, a radical shift took place in Afghanistan. The Taliban, led by Mullah Omar, captured the capital, Kabul, and establish the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Following this development, at the invitation of Mullah Omar, Bin Laden moved to the city of Kandahar. Thus, Bin Laden and al-Qaeda came under the protection of the Taliban, who had seized power in the country. Al-Qaeda and its affiliated organizations carried out truck bomb attacks on the United States embassies in Tanzania and Kenya. In these attacks, 224 people lost their lives, and more than 4,000 were injured. Following these attacks, then, U.S. President Bill Clinton authorized the CIA to use lethal force to kill Bin Laden. Because for them, the idea of capturing Bin Laden alive had become an extremely difficult prospect. Although operations were frequently conducted against al-Qaeda, Bin Laden managed to escape every time. Therefore, when the calendar showed June 1999, Bin Laden was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. Bin Laden was now the most talked about person on every news channel. Sometime later, an attack was launched against a U.S. destroyer, claiming the lives of 17 American sailors. However, Bin Laden's true target was the very heart of America: the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and the Capitol building in the capital. For these were the critical centers of America's economic and military power. Bin Laden had set his sights very high. In late 1999, a group of al-Qaeda terrorists from Hamburg, Germany, arrived in Afghanistan. These individuals were educated and spoke fluent English. Having lived in the West for a long time, they were well versed in Western culture. The team for Bin Laden's massive attack was complete. On the morning of September 11, 2001, New York woke up to a calm, clear day. But this tranquility gave way to catastrophe when a plane struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Before the world could recover from the shock, another United Airlines plane crashed into the South Tower. In less than 2 hours, both towers had completely collapsed. However, this was only the beginning of the end. Moments later, a third plane struck the western side of the Pentagon building near Washington. A fourth plane had also headed for the Capitol building in the capital, but crashed into an open field in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the toll was very heavy. All 246 passengers and crew on the 4 hijacked planes lost their lives. In the Twin Towers attacks, 2,606 civilians, 125 people at the Pentagon, and 441 first responders lost their lives. Finally, thousands of people were injured. Osama bin Laden had assigned 19 individuals for these attacks. They boarded the planes in groups of 3 to 5. Each group included one person trained as a pilot. And hold on tight. These individuals had received their training personally in flight schools within the United States. After the world's largest terrorist attack, America went after bin Laden and his supporters with full force. A massive operation was launched on the grounds that al-Qaeda and the Taliban were supporting each other. The name of this operation was the War on Terror. And America and Britain began striking al-Qaeda and Taliban targets. These attacks mark the beginning of the war in Afghanistan. Other NATO countries also took part in this war. However, despite looking under every stone, they could not reach bin Laden. A total of $27 million was promised to anyone who would share information leading to his capture. Therefore, bin Laden stopped appearing in public places and went underground. A short time later, critical intelligence arrived. According to this information, Bin Laden was determined to be in the rugged mountainous region of Tora Bora in Afghanistan. However, despite the intense operation in the region, Bin Laden managed to escape. Then the situation became such that it was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed Bin Laden. Although rumors frequently surfaced that he had died in 2007, America, wanting to reach a definitive conclusion, raised the bounty on Bin Laden to $50 million. In 2010, a critical development occurred. Bin Laden's most trusted courier, Ibrahim Saeed Ahmed, was identified by U.S. intelligence. When Saeed Ahmed spoke on the phone with his family in Kuwait, signal tracking gave away his location. The signals pointed to the city of Abbottabad in Pakistan, specifically to a complex surrounded by high walls, like a fortress. The CIA began monitoring this location day and night with satellite imagery. It was thought that this complex was built specially to hide someone very important, not an ordinary person. And according to all estimates, that person was Bin Laden. As a result of meticulously conducted planning, the button was pressed for the operation named Operation Neptune Spear. From this hour on, there was no luxury for error. 79 commandos and 1 specially trained dog took part in the operation. Arriving at the complex by helicopters, the commandos first cut the electricity. Then, by blowing up the walls and doors with explosives, they began to advance into the house. According to initial impressions, high-ranking al-Qaeda executives were living there with their families. When U.S. soldiers entered the house, they opened fire first on Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. The advancing team finally came face-to-face with Bin Laden. The man who had been chased for years, the most wanted man in the world, was right there in front of them. When Bin Laden saw the teams, he tried to flee to his room but was shot in the back by fire opened from behind. The U.S. soldiers following him continued to fire at Bin Laden, and Bin Laden lost his life right there. The operation, which lasted 37 minutes, had finally come to an end.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama Bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men.
According to official statements, Osama bin Laden's body was not buried, but was released into the sea. However, according to some circles, this operation was nothing more than a fiction and a theater. And even today, countless rumors continue to circulate that he is actually not dead.